I felt his fingers trace along my shoulder, slow and deliberate, sending warmth cascading down my spine. The river's gentle murmur filled the silence between us as twilight painted the sky in deep purples and gold. "Isabella," he whispered, his voice rough with something I'd never heard before. My breath caught as his touch lingered, firm yet tender, awakening something I'd buried deep inside. The evening air carried the scent of water and wildflowers, but all I could focus on was the heat radiating from his body as he stepped closer. "We shouldn't," I breathed, even as I leaned into his warmth. His other hand found my waist, steady and sure. "But we will," he murmured against my ear, and I knew there was no turning back. Hey there, beautiful souls. If you're enjoying this steamy river adventure, smash that like button and hit subscribe. Drop a comment telling me what's got your heart racing. I read every single one. The water lapped gently at the rocky shore as Gus guided me toward the weathered wooden dock that stretched into the darkening river. My heart hammered against my ribs, not from fear but from the electric anticipation coursing through my veins. Owen was miles away in the city, buried in another late business meeting, completely unaware that his wife was about to cross a line she'd only dreamed about in her most secret moments. "The sunset's perfect tonight," Gus said, but his eyes weren't on the horizon. They were fixed on me with an intensity that made my skin flush with heat. At 49, he carried himself with the kind of confidence that only comes with experience, his weathered hands speaking of years spent working outdoors, building things, fixing things. Tonight, I wanted those hands to fix the ache that had been growing inside me for months. I sat on the edge of the dock, letting my bare feet dangle in the cool water, but the chill did nothing to calm the fire building beneath my skin. Gus settled beside me, close enough that I could feel the warmth radiating from his thigh where it pressed against mine. The familiar scent of his cologne mixed with something distinctly masculine made my head spin. "You've been quiet today," he observed, his fingers finding a loose strand of my hair and tucking it behind my ear. The simple gesture sent shivers down my neck. "Something on your mind?" Everything was on my mind. The way he'd looked at me during family gatherings, the lingering touches that lasted just a beat too long, the heat in his gaze when he thought no one was watching. But mostly I thought about the growing distance between Owen and me, the way passion had slowly drained from our marriage like water through cupped hands. "Just thinking about things I shouldn't," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. His hand stilled against my cheek, thumb brushing across my lower lip with agonizing slowness. "What kind of things?" I turned to face him fully, and the hunger in his dark eyes nearly undid me. "About what it would feel like if you touched me the way I've been imagining." The air between us crackled with electricity. For a heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then his hands were framing my face, fingers threading through my hair as he drew me closer. "Isabella," he breathed, my name a prayer on his lips. "Tell me to stop." Instead, I pressed my palm against his chest, feeling his heartbeat thunder beneath my touch. "I can't," I whispered. "I don't want you to." His mouth claimed mine with a hunger that stole my breath. This wasn't the gentle, predictable connection I shared with Owen. This was fire and desperation, years of suppressed desire finally breaking free. His lips moved against mine with practiced skill, coaxing soft moans from my throat as his hands roamed down my back, pulling me flush against his solid frame. I melted into him, my fingers gripping the fabric of his shirt as he deepened our embrace. His tongue traced the seam of my lips, and I opened for him gladly, tasting the wine we'd shared earlier mixed with something uniquely him. Heat pooled low in my belly, spreading outward until every nerve ending felt alive and electric. "God, you're beautiful," he murmured against my mouth, his voice rough with need. His hands found the hem of my sundress, fingers skimming along my thighs with reverent touches that made me tremble. "I've wanted this for so long." "How long?" I asked, my voice breathy and foreign to my own ears. His smile was wicked as his thumb traced circles on my inner thigh, each touch sending jolts of pleasure through me. "Since the day Owen brought you home for the first time. You were wearing a blue dress, laughing at something he said, and I knew I was in trouble." The confession sent heat flooding through me. All this time he'd been watching, wanting, waiting, just like I had been. I reached for the buttons of his shirt, my fingers fumbling slightly with anticipation. He caught my hands, bringing them to his lips to press soft kisses to my knuckles. "Are you sure about this?" he asked, his eyes searching mine. "Once we cross this line." "I'm tired of lines," I said, pulling my hands free to continue my work on his shirt. "I'm tired of being careful and proper and doing what's expected." The shirt fell open, revealing the broad expanse of his chest, muscles defined from years of physical work. I pressed my palms against his warm skin, feeling him shudder beneath my touch. His hands found the straps of my dress, sliding them down, my shoulders with agonizing slowness. "You're shaking," he observed, his thumbs stroking along my collarbones. "So are you," I replied, noticing the slight tremor in his fingers as they traced the edge of my silhouette. The dock creaked gently beneath us as he shifted, laying me back against the warm wood. The last rays of sunlight filtered through the trees, painting golden patterns across our skin. He hovered above me, his weight supported on his forearms, and I'd never felt more beautiful than I did in that moment, seeing myself reflected in his desire-darkened eyes. His mouth found the sensitive spot where my neck met my shoulder, teeth grazing lightly before soothing with his tongue. I arched beneath him, my hands roaming the broad expanse of his back, feeling the muscles flex and shift as he moved above me. Every touch was deliberate, worshipful, as if he was memorizing the feel of my skin beneath his fingers. "You taste like summer," he whispered against my throat, his breath hot and humid. His lips traced a path lower, following the delicate chain of my necklace down to where it rested between my upper curves. I gasped as he pressed open-mouthed kisses to my heated skin, his facial hair creating delicious friction that made me writhe beneath him. My dress slipped lower, pooling around my waist as his hands explored the newly exposed territory. He took his time, treating each inch of revealed skin like a precious discovery. When his mouth followed the path his hands had traced, I couldn't suppress the soft cry that escaped my lips. "Beautiful," he murmured against my skin, the vibration of his voice sending shivers through me. "So incredibly beautiful." I pulled his face back to mine, needing to taste him again, to lose myself in the intoxicating warmth of his mouth. Our bodies pressed together, skin against skin, and I could feel the evidence of his desire pressing against my thigh. The knowledge that I affected him as strongly as he affected me sent a thrill of power through me. His hands found the curve of my waist, thumbs stroking along my ribs as he kissed me with increasing urgency. I could feel the last of my reservations, melting away like ice in the summer heat. This was what I'd been missing, this connection, this raw, honest desire that made every nerve ending sing with life. "Tell me what you want," he whispered against my ear, his voice rough with restraint. "You," I breathed without hesitation. "All of you." He rose above me, his eyes never leaving mine as he stripped away the last barriers between us. The sight of him, powerful and masculine in the fading light, made my mouth go dry with want. When he settled between my thighs, the intimate contact made us both gasp. "Look at me," he commanded softly as he joined with me, and I did, drowning in the intensity of his gaze as he filled me completely. The sensation was overwhelming, perfect, like coming home to a place I'd never known I was searching for. We moved together slowly at first, savoring the exquisite friction, the way our bodies seemed to fit together as if they'd been designed for this moment. His forehead pressed against mine, our breath mingling as we found our rhythm, each movement building the fire that threatened to consume us both. "God, Isabella," he groaned, his control beginning to fray. "You feel incredible." I wrapped my legs around his waist, pulling him deeper, and we both cried out at the sensation. The dock rocked gently beneath us, adding its own rhythm to our dance as the river whispered its ancient songs around us. Everything else faded away. My marriage, my guilt, my fears, until there was nothing but this moment, this connection, this perfect joining of souls that had been denied too long. His pace quickened, and I matched him stroke for stroke, my nails digging into his shoulders as the tension coiled tighter and tighter within me. The air filled with the sounds of our shared pleasure, soft moans and gasps that seemed to harmonize with the gentle lapping of the water against the shore. "Come with me," he whispered, his thumb finding that sensitive bundle of nerves where we were joined. The added stimulation was my undoing. I shattered beneath him, my body convulsing around him as waves of pleasure crashed over me like the river current. He followed seconds later, my name a broken cry on his lips as he found his own release. We lay tangled together afterward, our skin damp with perspiration, hearts gradually slowing from their frantic rhythm. The stars had begun to appear overhead, and somewhere in the distance a night bird called to its mate. The reality of what we'd done should have crashed down on me, but instead I felt strangely peaceful, complete in a way I hadn't experienced in years. Gus traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder, his touch gentle now, reverent. "Are you okay?" he asked softly. Turned in his arms, studying his face in the starlight. "Better than okay," I admitted. "I feel alive for the first time in years." He smiled, the expression transforming his rugged features. "You are alive, Isabella. You're vibrant and passionate and incredible, and anyone who doesn't see that is a fool." The compliment warmed me from the inside out, but it also brought a stab of guilt. Owen wasn't a bad man. He was just distracted, focused on building his career and our financial security. Somewhere along the way, we'd forgotten how to see each other as more than roommates sharing a life. "What happens now?" I asked, voicing the question that hung between us like morning mist. Gus was quiet for a long moment, his fingers still moving in those soothing patterns on my skin. "That's up to you," he finally said. "I won't push for more than you're willing to give, but I won't pretend this didn't mean everything to me." I pressed a kiss to his chest, tasting salt and the lingering essence of our shared passion. It meant everything to me, too. We dressed slowly, reluctantly, each piece of clothing feeling like a barrier being rebuilt between us and the magical bubble we'd created by the river. Gus helped me to my feet, his hands lingering on my waist as he steadied me on the gently swaying dock. "Your hair," he said with a soft chuckle, reaching up to smooth the tangles our lovemaking had created. "You look thoroughly loved." Heat flooded my cheeks at his words, but I didn't pull away from his touch. Instead, I leaned into it, savoring what might be our last moment of intimacy. "Do I?" I asked, suddenly concerned about returning home to Owen, looking like I'd spent the evening doing exactly what I had been doing. "Beautiful," he assured me, his thumb brushing across my lower lip. "But perhaps we should get you cleaned up before you head home." The mention of home sent a spike of anxiety through me. How was I supposed to face Owen after this? How was I supposed to pretend that everything was normal when I felt fundamentally changed, awakened in ways I'd forgotten were possible? Gus seemed to sense my internal turmoil. He cupped my face gently, forcing me to meet his eyes. "Hey," he said softly. "We don't have to figure everything out tonight. What happened here was beautiful, and I don't regret a second of it. Do you?" I searched my heart, expecting to find guilt and shame, but instead, I found only warmth and satisfaction. "No," I said, firmly. "I don't regret it." "Good," he said, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. "Then that's enough for now." We walked back to his cabin in comfortable silence, our fingers intertwined like teenagers after their first kiss. The simple contact sent little sparks of electricity up my arm, reminders of the passion we'd just shared. Inside, he handed me a glass of wine and gestured toward the bathroom. "Take your time," he said. "I'll wait." In the mirror, I barely recognized the woman staring back at me. My lips were swollen from his kisses, my hair mussed despite his attempts to smooth it, and my skin held the glow of satisfaction. But it was my eyes that showed the biggest change. They sparkled with life and vitality that had been missing for far too long. I splashed cool water on my face and did my best to tame my hair, but there was no hiding the fundamental shift that had occurred. I looked like a woman who had been thoroughly cherished, and the knowledge sent another flutter of heat through my core. When I emerged from the bathroom, Gus was standing by the window, looking out at the river where we'd just made love. He'd changed into fresh clothes, and his hair was slightly damp, suggesting he'd used the kitchen sink to clean up while I was occupied. "Better?" he asked, turning to face me. "Presentable," I replied, though we both knew that was a relative term. He crossed to me, his movements fluid and confident. "You're always beautiful," he said, his hands settling on my hips. "But there's something different about you now. A glow." "That's your effect on me," I admitted, my hands finding his chest of their own accord. Even through his shirt, I could feel the heat of his skin, the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. "Good," he said, his voice rough with renewed desire. "Because I want to have that effect on you again. And again." The promise in his words sent heat flooding through me. "Gus, I know," he said, his thumb stroking along my hip bones. "You need to get home, but know that this isn't over for me. I meant what I said. I've wanted you for years, and now that I've had a taste." He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The hunger in his eyes said everything. I reached up to touch his face, memorizing the feel of his strong jaw, the slight roughness of his evening stubble. "What are you thinking?" he asked, his voice gentle. "That I never expected to feel this way again," I said honestly. "That I'd forgotten what it was like to want someone so desperately that it aches." His eyes darkened at my confession. "It does ache," he agreed, his hands tightening slightly on my hips. "Even now, having just had you, I want you again." The admission sent a fresh wave of desire through me, and I had to fight the urge to surrender to it completely. "I should go," I said, though my body was screaming the opposite. "Should and want are two different things," he observed. "They are," I agreed, "but if I don't leave now, I might never leave." He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. "All right," he said. "But Isabella?" "Yes?" "This changes things between us. I can't pretend it didn't happen, and I won't pretend I don't want it to happen again." The honesty in his words both thrilled and terrified me. "I know," I whispered. He walked me to my car, his hand resting possessively on the small of my back. At the driver's door, he turned me to face him, his body caging me against the vehicle. Drive carefully, he said, his mouth hovering inches from mine. I will, I promised, though my voice was barely steady. He kissed me then, soft and sweet, but with an underlying current of passion that reminded me of everything we'd shared. When he pulled back, we were both breathing hard. Go, he said roughly, before I change my mind about letting you leave. Slipped into the car, my hands shaking slightly as I started the engine. Through the windshield, I could see him standing in the golden light spilling from his cabin, hands in his pockets, watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. The drive home passed in a blur of streetlights and racing thoughts. By the time I pulled into my driveway, Owen's car was already there, meaning his meeting had ended earlier than expected. My heart hammered as I checked my appearance one more time in the rearview mirror. Inside, I found him in his study, laptop open, tie loosened around his neck. He looked up when I entered, giving me a distracted smile. "How was your evening?" he asked, his attention already drifting back to his screen. "Relaxing," I said, hoping my voice sounded normal. "The sunset was beautiful." "Good," he murmured absently. "I'm glad you got some time to unwind. I'll be up in a bit. Just need to finish reviewing these contracts." I kissed the top of his head, a gesture that used to feel natural but now seemed foreign. "Don't stay up too late," I said. In our bedroom, I stripped off my clothes, hyper-aware of every place Gus had touched me. My skin still tingled with the memory of his hands, his mouth, the weight of his body covering mine. I showered quickly, trying to wash away the physical evidence of our encounter, but the emotional impact remained. Lying in bed later, listening to Owen's steady breathing beside me, I stared at the ceiling and replayed every moment by the river. I should have felt guilty. I was married, and what I'd done was a betrayal of my vows. But instead of guilt, I felt awakened, alive in a way I'd forgotten was possible. My phone buzzed softly on the nightstand, a text from Gus. "Sweet dreams. Beautiful. Thank you for the most perfect evening." I deleted the message quickly, but his words echoed in my mind as I finally drifted off to sleep. In my dreams, I was back by the river, back in his arms, back to that place where nothing existed but pure, honest desire. The next few days passed in a haze of ordinary activities, made extraordinary by the secret I carried. Every time the phone rang, my heart raced, hoping it might be Gus. Every time Owen touched me casually, a hand on my shoulder, a brief kiss goodbye, I felt like I was betraying both of them. It was Thursday evening when Gus finally called. Owen was working late, again, and I was alone in the kitchen, pushing food around my plate and thinking about strong hands and whispered promises. "Isabella," his voice was warm honey over the phone line. "Gus," I breathed, my body instantly responding to just the sound of his voice. "I can't stop thinking about you," he said without preamble. "About the other night, about how you felt in my arms." Heat flooded through me at his words. "I can't stop thinking about it either," I admitted. "Meet me tomorrow," he said. "Same place, same time." I closed my eyes, warring with myself. Meeting him again would make this an affair, not just a moment of weakness. But the memory of how alive I'd felt in his arms was too strong to resist. "Yes," I whispered. Sometimes the heart wants what it shouldn't have, and sometimes that wanting changes everything. Have you ever found yourself torn between duty and desire? What would you choose, the safe path or the one that sets your soul on fire? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your perspectives. Don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss these steamy stories. Until next time, keep following your heart, even when it leads you into dangerous territory.